I was lucky enough to spend 3.5 weeks backpacking Georgia in September 2024 and covered almost all of the highlights any traveller would want to be hitting up in the country. In this video, I'm going to share with you all the destinations I visited, all my recommendations along the way, how to get around, how much to budget, best time of year to visit, and all my tips and tricks that I've picked up and learned along the way. Go get out your pen and paper and get ready to make some notes, because if you are planning a trip to Georgia, this is your ultimate backpacking guide. If you are arriving into Tbilisi airport, you can either exchange cash in arrivals or pick up some cash from the ATM. You can also get a SIM here, but I prefer to download an eSIM prior from Airalo. There are public transport options from the airport, which could be worth it if you are arriving after 7 AM. They leave every half an hour and cost 7 lari, but especially if there is more than one of you and you have luggage, your best and easiest option would be to catch a Bolt. They use this in the city, and the journey to the city centre should cost you around 30 to 40 gel. Don't make the same mistake I did and catch a taxi and trust their meter, because like any other country, they will find a way to rip you off. In Tbilisi, I stayed in Envoy Hostel, which I'd really recommend. It's in a great location in the old town, close to lots of amenities and the sulphur baths. The dorm rooms are clean, you get your own shelf, light and plug socket. It has a gorgeous rooftop with a bar, and I found it really easy to meet people here. It was full of solo travellers, all just wanting to hang out and have a good time. The biggest hostel in town, however, is Fabrica, which is located in downtown, and it's huge, clean and cheap, but it's full of digital nomads and not necessarily backpackers. I wouldn't say it's a good place to make friends if that's what you're after. It does have a big courtyard though, with a bunch of different bars, which is a great place to go with friends in the evening, whether you're staying at the hostel or not. My top restaurant recommendation for backpackers in Tbilisi is Mapshalia. It's super cheap. I'm talking 1 litre of wine for less than £2. Fantastic Georgian food served super rapidly with no frills. It's full of locals getting their grub, and it's hidden right in the middle of the downtown. You can get around most of the city centre and attractions on foot, but if you did get public transport, you can use your contactless card for the metro. For the cable car, you need a Metro Money card, and this takes you from Reich Park up to the Mother of Georgia. This is a great spot for views over the city and for sunset. You can also walk up to the top via the botanical gardens, which are really peaceful and definitely worth it. Entry to the gardens is just 4 gel. You also have the hot air balloon in Reich Park, but it doesn't go anywhere. It just rises up and down and is attached to the ground by rope, but I imagine you get some pretty cool views over the city. It costs about 25 euros. I personally think the best way to get to know any city is with a guided walking tour. You can find loads of these online at Get Your Guide and websites like Guru Walks. These will take you to all the iconic sites in town and get to know a bit of an introduction to Georgia, its history and its culture. Tbilisi, the name actually means warm place, and it was built over natural sulphur hot springs. There is a particular spot in the old town called the Abanatubani district, which is covered in these brick domes, and inside here are all the different sulphur baths. There are some public ones, but we were told that getting a private room was the way to go, so we chose Gulo's Thermal Spa and booked a private room for 1 hour, which cost 250 gel and could hold a maximum of 6. So I found a troupe from the hostel to go with, and in the room we had our own hot pool, cold plunge pool, sauna, changing room, and you can add on a personal body scrub experience for 20 gel, which I'd say is fully worth it. I came out so soft, and they just come into your room and do it on the table. I believe it's more normal to do this whole experience entirely naked, but since we were a mixed group of backpackers, we decided to keep our bathers on, and that's completely fine too. Tbilisi is like the hub of the eastern part of Georgia, so you may find yourself coming back here more than once after various excursions, so don't panic if you don't manage to do everything you wanted to all in one go, because chances are you will be returning where you can explore some more. To the east of Tbilisi, you have the wine region of Kakheti, which is the biggest wine region in Georgia. And if you didn't know, Georgia is actually the birthplace of wine itself. So they say. It is the place where they found the oldest remains of winemaking. So it is well worth exploring and tasting your way around this part of the country. The winemaking process is also different to anywhere else you'll find in the world, so the wine looks and tastes different. The hub of this region, where it is most common to stay, is the town of Signagi. There is literally only one hostel in this town, so it's not super popular for backpackers to stay, but if you love wine and have the time, it could be super worth it, as the town is filled with cute wineries, historical landmarks, and even hikes in the surrounding area. I opted for a day tour from Tbilisi of the whole Kakheti wine region, organised by Envoy Hostel, which stopped at Georgia's largest wine storage facility, as well as Georgia's oldest winery, and included a dinner at Grandma's house, which I must say, with a bunch of backpackers, was a great day out and a great option if you are limited on time, but it was more of a whistle stop tour rather than feeling like you're fully exploring. One of the most iconic landmarks in Georgia is the Kakheti Trinity Church, and this is located in Kazbegi. You can find lots of day trips from Tbilisi to Kazbegi, but I would highly recommend spending a few days there because there are so many beautiful spots to explore in the area. We actually hacked the system a bit and got a Get Your Guide day trip, stopping along the way at Shimvali Reservoir and Anuri Fortress and the Panorama Gudowri, which were all spectacular spots to visit. We brought all of our bags with us, and when the bus stopped in Stepan Sminda, we just got off there and didn't return with the group back to Tbilisi. And this was the same price as just getting a public bus directly to Stepan Sminda. There aren't many hostel options in Stepan Sminda. We actually found this little homestay on booking.com called Leo Hostel, which I'd highly recommend if you have a little group because you have to book the entire room with 5 dorm beds. And they were just so cute. Our Georgian dad was making us do cha-cha shots with him every evening, and with 5 people in the room, it worked out to only be 18 gel per night. The main activity here is hiking up to the Kakheti Glacier. You can do this as a day hike, which is easier if you catch a lift or a bolt up to the Kakheti Trinity Church to start your hike, because from there it is about a 20-kilometer round trip. You get beautiful views of Mount Kazbegi throughout. It is also possible to camp or stay in cabins right up near the glacier to turn this into a multi-day trek. Some people do this and even summit the mighty Kazbegi, but this hike is arguably the most iconic one in all of Georgia. On the way to the church, you can also find Georgia's longest zip line, which may tickle your fancy. Another hike in the area, which is arguably more beautiful, is around the area of Juta. You can take a 40-minute bolt to the trailhead and hike up to what looks like the Dolomites of Georgia. You can even stay in this area, which could be worth it as there are a good number of hiking trails to explore. I did a 12-kilometer loop up to the very freezing cold lake, which I naturally took a bit of a reluctant dip in. The city of Kutaisi is the second largest in Georgia. It's like a smaller and slower paced version of Tbilisi, and it's worth looking into flights here as it can often be cheaper than flying into Tbilisi. But whether you're starting here or not, there are a bunch of cool things to do in the city which make it worth visiting. Kutaisi is actually the old capital of Georgia and has some really lovely architecture to observe. You can walk up to the cathedral for great views over the city. I'm obsessed with a wild swimming spot, and a 20-minute walk out of town, Kutaisi has one of the best ones. You literally just search up river swim on Google Maps, and it's this part of the river which is perfect for taking a dip. You can jump or dive in from the slightly sketchy bridge. The water is not too cold, a perfect temperature actually, and there's a lot of grassy space on the side to lay out your towel and chill or sunbathe. About a 1-hour drive from Kutaisi is the Martvili Canyon, which is well worth a visit. You can find day trip tours for around 100 gel, but as a backpacker, you want the more budget-friendly freedom option, right? You can round up a group and take a boat to or from the canyon, and when you arrive, they usually drop you at the visitor center where you're encouraged to pay for a pretty expensive and pretty short boat ride through the canyon. Or you can walk 1 kilometer down the road and find this lady in a shack who charges you just 2 lari for you to enter down this dirt path which leads you to the part of the canyon which you can swim in, jump off rocks, and frolic to your heart's content. There is a hostel called Karma near the canyon which was highly recommended and definitely could be worth staying at if you wish to explore more of the canyons in the area as well. A bit closer to Kutaisi, you have the abandoned sanatorium, which are actually well worth a visit, especially if you are into photography. It really is wild taking a walk through these eerie spaces in the middle of a woodland paradise. We visited Sanatorium Metallurgist and Sanatorium Medea, and bonus points if you manage to find the old but restored swimming pool in Medea. Story was such a good restaurant for good food and drinks on the outdoor terrace overlooking the calm river. We spent 7 hours here. Another amazing dinner spot is Sisters. It feels like you're eating inside an old castle. They play live piano and violin, which was absolutely majestic. Bao Hostel came as a high recommendation both by word of mouth and online reviews, but was always booked out about a week in advance, so we stayed at the Black Tomato Hostel, which was also amazing. The pod beds were huge, almost like you have your own room in there. It was also a super social hostel. I made a bunch of friends here. Mestia is a stunning little mountain town which is the hub to so many hikes and mountain activities. Cafe Layla was our favourite spot to eat in town. Great food, great vibe, great prices, and great service. We stayed in the cheapest place in town, which is also one of the only hostels, called Camping and Hostels Finland. The dorm is just a bunch of single beds, like a big sleepover room. It's basic, but it has everything you need. Honestly, at the price being 17 gel per night, I would highly recommend it. It's also a great place to meet other travellers to go hiking with. Speaking of hikes, the most iconic hike to do from Mestia is in fact a multi-day 60-kilometer hike to Ushguli. So it's a bit of a commitment, but hear me out. Most hikers will take 4 days to do this hike, staying in the towns such as Lakiri, Adishi and Iprari, with more or less 15 kilometers and 800 meters of ascent and descent per day. There's actually various different towns you could choose from, and in each of them there are guest houses where you can stay and they feed you, which makes it an easy multi-day hike to pack for. Or you can also camp at many points along the trail, which would make your stays even more flexible, but of course you'd need to be hiking with all of your gear. The hike is signposted, but I'd recommend having it downloaded on AllTrails or Maps.me, as there are a few points where it could be easy to go the wrong way. It's also possible to do the trail in 2 or 3 days, depending on how fit you are and how energetic you're feeling. If you are an experienced hiker, it is well worth taking the scenic route on the last day to Ushguli as opposed to the regular route for the most epic views of the whole area, but at the expense of it being triple the difficulty. Ushguli is also a super cute mountain town with lots of guest houses and cafes where you can spend the night or just catch a 1-hour taxi back to Mestia, where you've probably left your main bags. Mestia is the last place where you have access to actual supermarkets across the whole trek, so make sure you stock up on food, toiletries, cash, medication, and any other necessities you may need for the following few days here. Now, most backpackers I came across told me not to go to Batumi, it's not worth it. And I get it. Batumi is a city on the west coast of Georgia. It's cosmopolitan, it's popular with a lot of non-backpacker tourists who come for a week-long holiday to relax by the beach, go to the casinos and amusement parks. If you don't have much time in Georgia, then Batumi probably won't be on your priority list, but I'm glad I went, and here's why. It's one of your only opportunities to swim in the Black Sea in Georgia. If you love swimming in salt water like me, this is your chance. Batumi beach itself isn't that special, but you can use the city as a base to visit nicer beaches up the coast such as Black Sand Ureki Beach and Gonio Beach. In Batumi they have an amusement park open till late, they also have a cable car, and one of the most impressive botanical gardens in the country is in Batumi. You see, Batumi has its own microclimate, different from the rest of Georgia. It feels incredibly tropical here, the vegetation is different, it's very cool to see. A lot of tourists come to Batumi to gamble in one of the many casinos. I found Batumi to have a wonderful wine bar scene. We were wandering the streets and stumbled across Wine Vault Calandria, owned by a guy called Alexander, who had the largest wine pours in the country. It was so good. We stayed in Hostel 47, which I would highly recommend. It's an amazing location central in the city. It's clean, social, good amenities, and the owner Laika is full of good information and recommendations to send you on your way in Batumi and around Georgia. Borjomi is home to one of the biggest national parks in the country, which is absolutely stunning and a true hiker's haven. After assessing all the options, we picked the Panorama Trail, which is a 2-day 33-kilometer hike throughout the park. You must visit the Borjomi Karaguli National Park Visitor Center before embarking on any hike in the park to get a permit. This was just 5 gel if you want to camp and 20 gel if you want to stay in the shelter, which is what we did. But do be warned, it is really basic, just wooden bunk beds. You need to bring a sleeping bag, mat, cooking provisions, and all your water, because there is nothing up there. They have a number for a guy you can rent these things from at the visitor center if you don't already have them. If you want to feel like you are truly in the wilderness with next to no humans around, this is the hike for you. Borjomi is another town famous for its natural hot springs. They have outdoor sulfur baths that you can relax in. On a personal level, the one place I wish I could have reached in my time in Georgia was Tusheti National Park. It's hard to get to though. You can only get public transport to Shaveli, then you have to hitchhike or get an expensive taxi to the town of Omelo on one of the sketchiest roads in the country via the Abano Pass. I wanted to go here to get really off the beaten track with insane multi-day hikes, but you need to come prepared with all of your own camping gear, and you can only visit in the high season of summer from June through to September. By far, the easiest way to get around Georgia is with the Marshutka buses. These are minivans which take you to all the places you want to get to as a traveler. Isn't that ideal? You just head to the central bus station of whatever town you are in, and you will see the destination name in the windscreen of the bus. Or just say the name of where you're going and you'll be pointed in the right direction. And the buses leave when they are full, but generally they tend to most frequently leave at 8 AM in the morning. So I'd rock up at that time to get the best chance of not waiting too long. Hitchhiking is also also very popular in Georgia and known to be safe, so for the more adventurous and budget-conscious backpackers, this can be worth giving a go for longer or short journeys. In terms of ride-sharing apps, Bolt is very active almost everywhere in Georgia, and the prices are really reasonable, making it super worth it for getting places in the city, even as a backpacker. Especially if you are sharing the cost with other backpackers, this actually can work out almost as cheap as public transport. I set myself a budget of £40 per day in Georgia. I think if I really wanted to, I could have stuck to this quite easily, but we know what I'm like when it comes to indulging on food and wine. So I ended up spending an average of £45 per day, which actually isn't terrible. That works out to be a budget of £1,350 per month. This is based on staying almost exclusively in hostel dorm rooms, eating mostly Georgian food, but eating out for almost every meal and not holding back on the activities on offer. If you travel slower than I did, I think you could achieve backpacking Georgia on a £1,000 per month budget, but if you are trying to do the whole country in 2 weeks, I think a budget of £1,600 per month is more realistic. What I have found in Georgia is that eating out is relatively inexpensive and buying from the supermarket isn't exactly super cheap. Not only that, but a lot of the time there is not a huge price difference between the low-rated restaurants and highly rated restaurants. Georgian cuisine is also world famous, and it should definitely be on your bucket list to try as many of their dishes as you can. Some of my favorites are kinkali, which are Georgian dumplings, khachapuri, which is basically cheesy bread, and ostri, which is a very mildly spicy tomato sauce with meat chunks. It is pretty doable to get around Georgia as a vegetarian. There are always options, but it may just be cheese. And being a vegan in Georgia is doable in the cities, but elsewhere you may find the cuisine to be incredibly repetitive and not loads of options for you. The local spirit is cha-cha, and it is very commonly drunk and brewed amongst locals and travelers. If a Georgian offers you a shot of cha-cha, they offer it out of their warm hospitality. You can refuse it, but it's best and most polite to accept it and say "Galmarjos." I visited Georgia in September, which I think was a perfect time to visit. It was mostly sunny everywhere and not too hot. Highs of around 30 in the city and highs of around 24 in the mountains. You can always expect there to be a bit of rain in the afternoons in the mountains though. But Georgia is great to visit all summer. In winter, it is also great to visit Georgia, but for a completely different vibe. The hiking trails turn into ski trails, and it is actually a marvelous country for snow sports. I hope to return in winter one day to give you a full winter guide to Georgia. Some apps to download before you arrive. Definitely Bolt, which is the car sharing app to use all across Georgia. Download the XE currency app and make sure you have added gel as well as your own currency to the list to always know the current conversion rate. Google Maps to help you get around and get restaurant and accommodation reviews. Remember to download the destination of Georgia for offline use as well. All Trails to discover and navigate hiking trails is a godsend. Maps.me is another map app to cross-reference your hikes, routes and destinations. Booking.com is the app I like to use most for booking accommodation. You can filter to just hostels if that's what you're after, and I found that a lot of the hostels weren't on Hostelworld, but they were on Booking.com in Georgia. And after the hikes that I did, I would often filter to find accommodations with a sauna as well. Oh yes. And finally, Airalo. You can get a physical SIM in Georgia, or if you prefer eSIMs like me, I recommend Airalo. I have a discount code for you here as well. Other random things to note: if you are an early riser and likes to go to the bakery or cafe before 9 a.m. in the morning, don't expect it to be open in Georgia. I would just make your own coffee in the morning. They use plug type C in Georgia, which is the same as mainland Europe, so make sure you have an adapter if necessary for this plug type. Pack your hiking boots. This isn't always a priority footwear when backpacking, but I feel like it should be here as hiking is such a big part of travel in this country. And on a random note, in my experience, I have found that the demographic of solo backpackers in Georgia is 90% male. I'm not saying this to scare off the solo female backpackers. In fact, quite the opposite. I need you all to come here and start representing the gals with me, because this country is awesome. But even as a minority solo female traveler, I haven't once felt unsafe or uncomfortable in that situation. In fact, I've made wonderful friends here. Most Georgians you come across will speak some level of English, especially the younger generation who have been taught in schools. The older generation are more likely to know Russian and German, so speaking any of these languages is useful in Georgia, but it's really handy learning at least a few basic words to make the Georgian people smile. Hello is gamajoba. thank you is madloba. Cheers is galmarjos. Sekat velo means Georgia, so sekat velo garmarjos means long live Georgia. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot about backpacking Georgia. I will link in the description all the useful things, like all my vlogs for my time in Georgia. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!